The Last Human Story: How to Write in the Age of AI by Peter Lamb. Prologue: a blank page and a loaded algorithm. You're staring at the blinking cursor. Again. It blinks like a heartbeat, a silent challenge, a digital dare. Maybe you're fresh out of uni. Maybe you've got a degree in English, history, politics, or philosophy. Maybe you spent 3 years learning how to craft arguments, dissect stories, understand people, and speak truth through words. And now, you feel like none of it matters. Because the world changed while you were writing your dissertation, didn't it? Somewhere between your second-year essay on Orwell's Doublethink and your final project on decolonial narrative frameworks, the headlines started screaming, "AI is replacing writers. ChatGPT passes bar exam." Marketing teams now run entire campaigns using bots. You scroll LinkedIn and see job posts asking for prompt engineers instead of journalists. You hear your classmates talk about pivoting to UX design or quitting writing entirely. You feel it, that creeping doubt in your stomach, that sinking thought. Why would anyone hire me when they can generate 500 words in 3 seconds for free? You're not imagining it. The world has shifted. But here's what they're not telling you. Yes, AI is fast. Yes, it can imitate. But AI cannot live. It cannot feel. It cannot show up on a cold morning with a recorder and a notebook and ask the right question at the right time. It cannot cry at the answer. It cannot sit in silence and listen. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what makes you irreplaceable. This book isn't about denying the power of AI. It's about reclaiming your power as a writer. It's about reminding you, yes, you, the humanities grad with the battered tote bag and the opinion column no one paid you for, that there is still room for the human story. Because here's the truth. The more automated the world becomes, the more desperate it becomes for authenticity, for emotion, for ethics, for voice. And that's where you come in. You are not obsolete. You are not naive for wanting to tell stories. You are not wasting your time by writing things that matter, but you will need to be bold. You will need to stop waiting for permission. You will need to learn how to build a writing life on your own terms, whether that's in a newsroom, on TikTok, in a Substack newsletter, or through podcast scripts recorded in your bedroom at 2 a.m. You'll need to know where the real jobs are, where your degree still opens doors, if you know how to knock, and how to use AI as a tool, not a replacement. This isn't about nostalgia. It's about navigation. If you're terrified, good. That means you care. That means you're awake. And if you're awake, you're ready. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The fear is real, and so is the demand. Let's start by acknowledging the thing that no one wants to say out loud. You're scared. And not in a dramatic, existential way. In a very real, very practical, how do I pay rent in 6 months kind of way. You studied something you loved. You developed your voice. You learned how to analyze, argue, empathize, write. And now, everyone's acting like those skills were a hobby, not a career. And the job market, well, it looks like a glitchy landscape designed by someone who thinks entry-level means 5 years of experience. You keep seeing the same 3 soul-destroying headlines. AI will replace creative jobs. Journalists made redundant after chatbot trial. Copywriters replaced by generative language tools. And worst of all, it's good enough. Good enough? That's the new standard now? Not good, not moving, not ethical. Just fast, cheap, and passable. The fear you're feeling is valid. It's not melodrama. It's logic. You're living through a revolution. Just not the kind they hyped you up for in school. This isn't the Industrial Revolution, or the digital one. This is something stranger. A world where machines can now produce stories. And worse still, no one's stopping them. Let's break this down. Part 1. The myth of total replacement. First off, let's get one thing straight. AI isn't replacing writers. It's replacing tasks. There's a big difference. AI is good at certain types of writing. SEO articles about best laptops for students. Press releases that say nothing and go nowhere. Auto-generated sports scores or stock reports. Repetitive emails, cold outreach, ad copy. It's efficient, unemotional, tireless, but it can't do long-form investigative reporting, emotionally intelligent interviews, personal essays with lived nuance, narratives that require moral tension, satire that cuts and heals at the same time, culture writing that feels the moment, not just records it. Why? Because it doesn't live in the world. AI doesn't get ghosted. It doesn't notice police sirens sound different depending on the neighborhood. It doesn't panic when it sees zero in the bank account at the end of the month. It doesn't care who wins the election because it doesn't have a future. You do. And that means you have something it never will: stakes. Part 2. The demand is quiet, not gone. Now, here's the twist. While everyone's running around screaming that writing jobs are dead, something fascinating is happening. The real demand for human storytelling is growing, but it's changing shape. Let's take an example. You've probably heard of the Washington Post, right? Back in 2017, they introduced an AI tool called Heliograph to automate short news updates. It could write basic pieces on local elections or sports scores. People freaked out. Robots are coming for journalists, they cried. Here's what happened next. The actual journalists? They were freed up to do deeper reporting, more investigations, more interviews, more real stories, because the grunt work had been automated. That same model is now being used in climate journalism, health reporting, local government coverage. But the human brain is still at the center of everything that matters. Let's go smaller, more relatable. Ever heard of Substack? It's a platform where writers build their own newsletters and charge subscribers. And guess what? As of 2025, over 3 million people subscribe to at least one paid Substack. Some writers are earning more than they did at major newspapers. And most of them, they write human, messy, honest stories. Stories like, I left my job in tech to start a beekeeping farm. Living with bipolar in a gig economy. Dispatches from a war zone as a former English teacher. AI can't write those. Not really. Not honestly. Part 3. The degree. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. You've probably heard this. You should have studied computer science. You're never going to get a real job with that arts degree. The world doesn't need more writers. Let's dissect that. First of all, no degree is a guaranteed job anymore. We've seen tech layoffs gut entire departments. We've watched law grads take jobs in coffee shops. We've seen engineers switch to comedy because they couldn't stand coding anymore. There's no such thing as a safe career. Not anymore. But there is such a thing as a meaningful one. And the world still runs on. Communication, narrative, morality, empathy, cultural critique. These are not luxuries. They are infrastructure. Want proof? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, every podcast and blog and news site. They are all powered by storytelling. And the best content comes from humans who know how to build tension, land an emotional punch, ask real questions, make someone laugh, then cry, then think. That's you. Ongoing Part 4. AI is not your enemy. You don't have to see AI as your enemy. Not if you understand what it is, and more importantly, what it's not. It's not conscious. It's not ethical. It's not original. It's like a supercharged remix engine. It can take what's already been written and mash it into something plausible. But it cannot care. Let's say you're writing a piece on youth homelessness. AI can summarize stats. But it can't sit in a shelter, hear someone's story, and feel the weight of it. It can't pause, cry, and realize you've just changed how you see the world. That's journalism. That's storytelling. That's human. And it's irreplaceable. Ongoing Part 4. Part 5. You're needed, but you'll have to pivot. So no, the fear isn't wrong. Some writing jobs are disappearing, but others are emerging. And here's the reality. You might not get hired as a writer straight away, but you might become a content designer for a climate action nonprofit, a scriptwriter for a social justice podcast, a creative strategist for a documentary team, a speechwriter for a grassroots politician, a ghostwriter for a founder who doesn't know how to connect with people. All of those jobs require your brain, your experience, your voice. Closing reflection. The world may not make it easy, but it still needs writers, especially ones who understand the times we're living through. Your fear is real, but so is your talent. And more importantly, so is the demand for the kind of truth-telling that only a human heart can deliver. Don't aim to write like a machine. Aim to write like someone who survived the flood of automation and still had something worth saying. You're not done. You're just getting started. Chapter 2. What machines can't do yet. Let's take a moment and ask a strange question. What exactly does it mean to write like a human? Not in a technical sense, not grammar, not spelling, not even style. We're talking about that something else, the thing that makes your story hit different, the thing that makes someone lean in, lower the volume, and whisper, "Wait, this is real." So here's a truth worth underlining. AI is not your rival. It's your reflection, a distorted one. It can replicate structure. It can predict what usually comes next. But it doesn't feel. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't choose meaning over perfection. And it never bleeds into the page. You do. Part 1. AI can't feel the pause. Let's start with something simple. A pause. You know the kind I mean. When you're talking to someone and they say something devastating, and you don't know what to say back. So there's silence. Not emptiness. Wait. A journalist once told the story of interviewing a young mother who'd lost her home in a flood. She was stoic the whole time. Facts, dates, names, until the interviewer stopped asking questions. Just sat there, and the woman broke. She told him about her daughter's teddy bear, how it floated down the street, how she ran after it barefoot through the mud until it disappeared. No AI would have waited that long. No AI would have caught the silence and known what it meant. But a human did. That's what writing needs. Recognition, presence, permission to unfold. Part 2. AI doesn't know what it's like to be poor, or marginalized, or afraid. Let's go deeper. AI doesn't have a body. It doesn't get hungry. It doesn't fear rejection. It doesn't feel racism. It doesn't walk home with keys between its fingers. It doesn't carry generational trauma. It doesn't have rent due and no one to call. It doesn't live. That matters. Because when you write about struggle, about poverty, about racism, about loss, it's not just an exercise in vocabulary. It's lived reality. It's language shaped by survival. Take Misha Fraser-Carroll, a British writer who speaks openly about mental illness and identity. Her essays aren't just well-written, they resonate. Why? Because she's been there. The stares, the misdiagnoses, the system. AI can fake the outline of that story, but it can't survive it, and it can't write from the scar. That's the difference. People don't want clean words. They want honest ones. Part 3. AI can't sit with complexity. We live in a world that demands nuance. And AI? It's not great with nuance. It's designed to give answers. Humans are built to live with questions. That's our superpower. Should we forgive historical figures for being products of their time? Can art still be celebrated if its creator was abusive? What does justice look like in a broken system? Try asking a chatbot one of those. You'll get a disclaimer, maybe some bullet points. You won't get tension. You won't get a soul wrestling with itself. But readers want that. They want you to sit in the murky middle, to explore the gray, to not know. One of the best op-eds in the last year was written by a Palestinian writer who admitted to feeling both deep grief and deep fury. He didn't offer a solution. He didn't moralize. He just told the truth of what it felt like to be human in that moment. AI can summarize conflict, but it can't write grief. That takes a person with trembling hands and a cracking voice and a willingness to be misunderstood. Unquote. Part 4. AI doesn't take risks. Let's talk about risk. Real writing puts something on the line. It says, this might not work, but I'm going to try. It says, this is vulnerable. This is me. And that's exactly why it connects. A 24-year-old from Manchester writes an open letter to her estranged father on Medium. It goes viral, not because it's perfectly structured, but because it's raw, awkward, and real. A Somali poet posts videos on TikTok of her spoken word pieces. Shaky phone footage. No filters. Each poem has thousands of comments like, this saved me today. A non-binary student writes a zine about dating in a world that only sees genders and binaries. They print 50 copies. They sell out at a punk gig in Sheffield. Then they get invited to speak at a university workshop. None of that happened through perfection. It happened through risk. AI plays it safe. It mirrors. You don't. You invent. You leap. You care. Unquote. Part 5. AI doesn't know how it ends, but neither do you. One of the most powerful things about human storytelling is that we don't know the ending. We write in real time with real consequences. A writer covering a protest might get tear-gassed, might be arrested, might change their mind halfway through writing the article, might get hate, might get love, might find themselves. AI, it ends where it began, in the data. But you write forward. You write into uncertainty. You write with hope or spite or faith or rage. That's why people still read human writing, because they want to walk with someone who's living it. Insert part 6. AI doesn't build trust. Here's a hidden truth in the media world right now. No one trusts anything. We don't trust influencers. We don't trust headlines. We don't trust AI-generated facts. We don't trust polished perfection. But we do trust humanity. Vulnerability. Admitting you were wrong. Admitting you're scared. Admitting you're still learning. A 2024 survey showed that readers were more likely to trust independent writers who disclosed their own biases, lived experiences, or doubts. AI can't do that. It doesn't have beliefs. It doesn't have skin in the game. You do, and people notice. Part 7. So what does all this mean for you? If you're thinking, okay, this is all very poetic, but how do I use this? Good question. Here's how. Write from where you are. Don't try to sound like a robot. Don't try to be a brand. Sound like a person who's going through something real. That's where the power is. Embrace the uncomfortable. Don't avoid stories that are raw, confusing, or imperfect. That's your strength. Machines can't do messy. Lead with experience, not credentials, not SEO keywords, not virality. Lived experience. It matters more than ever. So make the reader feel something. If someone finishes your piece and says, "That felt like a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear," you've done your job. So don't write like the machine. Write like the antidote to the machine. Final thought. You're not here to compete with code. You're here to remind people what it means to be alive. To tell the stories that no algorithm would dare to imagine. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fast. You just need to be real. Because in a world full of generated noise, authenticity is rebellion. And writing is still the loudest way to whisper, "I exist. I matter. This happened." Keep writing, not because the world asked you to, but because it still needs you, even if it doesn't know it yet. Chapter 3. Human First Niches. Where to write now. Let's pause the existential panic for a moment. Because yes, while some writing jobs have become more automated, others have quietly expanded. And the ones worth doing, they still need you. This chapter is all about finding your place in the current storytelling ecosystem, an ecosystem that's messy, evolving, and full of opportunity if you know where to look. Part 1. The death of the traditional career path. Let's get one thing out of the way. There is no longer a straight line from English degree to respected journalist to column in the Times, not unless you've got a trust fund, a famous surname, or an internship you landed because your dad knows someone at Channel 4. For the rest of us, the route is weirder, messier, more DIY, but that doesn't mean it's worse. It just means you need to stop looking for permission and start looking for platforms. Let's explore where those platforms are. Section 2. Newsletters and the rise of the indie voice. Let's talk about Substack. It's more than a newsletter. It's a personal publishing platform. And right now, thousands of writers are building careers by writing directly to an audience that chose them. No editor, no algorithm gatekeeping, just a human talking to other humans. Take Balaji Olatunji, 27, based in Leeds. She studied sociology, couldn't land a job in traditional media, and started writing about cultural identity in the north of England. Her Substack, The Northern Thread, now brings in over £900 per month from just 300 subscribers, and she's been invited to write for The New Statesman and Galdem as a result. Substack isn't about scale, it's about trust, and if you can build it, you can own your audience and your voice. Other platforms doing similar things: Ghost for minimalist bloggers, Button Down if you like simplicity, Beehive, newsletter with growth tools, Patreon, great for creative writing, poetry, serialized fiction. You don't need 1 million followers. You need 1,000 who care. Section 3. Podcasting, where writers still rule. Think podcasts are all just lads talking football or tech bros. Think again. The best podcasts, they're written, structured, scored like audio documentaries. And guess who's scripting them? Writers, just like you. Take Kavita Chauhan, 25, from Birmingham, history graduate, no journalism degree. She started producing a podcast called Daughters of the Empire. Stories of South Asian women in Britain, told through first-person interviews and narration. She wrote the scripts, edited the audio on free software, released it through Spotify and Apple. Now she's a story editor for a major BBC audio drama series. You don't need a studio. You need a decent mic, Reaper or Audacity, free audio tools, Descript, editing with transcripts, a willingness to research, script, and tell truth. Podcasting is ripe for writers, especially if you bring voice, structure, and heart. Want a niche? Try oral histories from your town, audio essays on grief, love, anger, series exploring the life of a local unsung hero, creative fiction serialized by theme. Part 4, Long-Form Digital Journalism. The deep dive lives on. You'd be forgiven for thinking long-form writing is dying. Clickbait, TikToks, threads. But in reality, people are hungry for deep reads, especially if the writing's good, the research is sharp, and the stakes are personal. Places still publishing long-form. ProPublica, investigative journalism. Narratively, human stories with cinematic depth. The Guardian long reads. Rest of World, reporting on tech outside the West. The Marshall Project, criminal justice reporting. Huck, culture and politics for the disillusioned. Let's take a real-world example. Sean Barrow, 24, was working part-time at Tesco and blogging about housing inequality. He pitched a story to The Big Issue about no-fault evictions. They ran it. He now freelances for Vice, Novara Media, and is researching a podcast doc for Channel 4. The key is specificity. Don't pitch homelessness in the UK. Pitch what I learned living in a friend's van for 2 months after being priced out of Manchester. The flat share with no doors, how Gen Z is redesigning privacy in a housing crisis. Make it yours, make it sharp, make it human. Part 5, Writing for Nonprofits, Activists, and Ethical Brands. Here's a secret most universities don't tell you. You can make money writing without ever working for the media. Humanities grads are in demand for NGOs, climate orgs, health justice campaigns, arts collectives, political movements, ethical startups. Roles you can aim for: content creator, copywriter, campaign writer, social impact strategist, speechwriter, newsletter editor. Take Maya Henry, 23. She studied literature and African studies. She now writes grants and donor letters for an anti-trafficking organization in Nairobi. She earns £32,000 per year and says, "I write to keep real-world missions funded. Every sentence matters. You don't need to be famous. You need to be useful." Look for jobs on Escape the City, charityjob.co.uk, idealist.org, The Dots, LinkedIn filtered by social impact. Don't underestimate how powerful your voice can be in the right context. Part 6, Cultural Criticism and Lived Experience Writing. If you love watching, analyzing, reacting, there's space for your take. Cultural criticism is booming. Think reaction essays on viral TikToks, first-person memoirs on queerness, race, gender, thoughtful dissections of new shows, trends, music, feminist breakdowns of political blunders, neurodivergent analysis of modern capitalism. Just make it personal plus insightful. Writers making this work: Daisy Jones, youth culture pieces for Vice, Dazed, Z-Way, sharp satirical takes on identity. Sophie Duker, blending comedy plus critique. Arabelle Sicardi, fashion meets feminist politics. Places to pitch: Dazed, ID, The Face, Galdem, Vox, Teen Vogue, Hyperallergic, Elephant Mag. You can also self-publish. A TikTok or Instagram carousel with a strong caption can be the essay. Gen Z lives on culture. You can become its mirror and its critic. Part 7, Micro niches you might not have thought of. Some of the best opportunities aren't obvious. Examples: writing video essays for YouTubers, many big names outsource scripts. Game narrative writing, especially for indie games. Fan fiction turned original fiction. See Wattpad to publishing deals. education startups, writing explainers for young learners, museum and heritage writing, exhibit text, visitor guides, scripting virtual tours or AR apps. Yes, that's a job. Spoken word poetry on social media, monetized via Patreon or merch. Every time someone needs a story that resonates, a writer is behind it. Closing, the common thread. What ties all this together? Emotion, voice, lived experience, the ability to connect. These aren't nice-to-haves. They are your currency. You are not entering a world with no writing jobs. You're entering a world that demands writers who are bold, are specific, are self-starting, can speak from somewhere real. You don't have to go viral. You just need to matter to someone. Whether that's a newsletter with 200 subscribers, a podcast with 80 listeners, a grant letter that raises £10,000, a cultural critique that inspires a classroom discussion, or a blog post that changes someone's day. That's writing. That's real, and it's still worth doing. Chapter 4. Build, Don't Wait. The DIY Portfolio. Let's be real. You've probably applied for a dozen internships, maybe 20, maybe 50, and if you're lucky, you got a polite rejection. If you're unlucky, nothing, just silence. So much for apply everywhere, so much for get your foot in the door, so much for waiting your turn. Here's the thing, you don't need permission to start. You don't need to wait for someone at The Guardian to say, "We think you've got potential." You just need to build your own body of work on your own terms. This chapter is about how to do exactly that, because the writers who win in this strange, shifting world aren't the ones with the fanciest bylines. They're the ones who built something before anyone asked them to. Part 1. What is a portfolio and why you need one? A writing portfolio is simple. It's a collection of work that shows what you can do. Think of it like a mixtape. Your voice, your style, your range, your worldview. But here's what most people miss. It's not about credentials. It's about proof. Proof that you can. Write with clarity. Write people care. Write explore different formats. Write stick with a project. Write create from scratch. The best portfolios? They're not perfect. They're honest. They evolve. They grow with you. You don't need to fake being a polished journalist. You need to be a working one. Even if your newsroom is just your bedroom and your editor is a cat named Beans. Part 2. Portfolio platforms you can start using today. There are zero excuses in 2025 for not having a digital presence. Not because it's trendy, because it's necessary. Here's where to build your portfolio. Medium. Great for personal essays, thought pieces, and culture commentary. Easy to format, free. Readers can follow you. Substack. Ideal if you want to build an audience over time. You can use it as a blog or a newsletter. Also lets you collect emails. Notion. For the aesthetic Gen Z crowd, you can build a clean, minimal portfolio without coding. Contently or journal portfolio, more professional platforms. Good for pitching to companies or clients. Linktree or Beacons. If you're posting work across TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, centralize your links here. And remember, your name is a brand. You don't need a logo. You don't need a marketing plan. Just a place where people can see what you've made. Part 3. What goes into a great DIY portfolio? Here's a simple recipe. 3 to 5 strong writing samples. Different tones, different topics. Prove range. 1 personal piece. Let them hear you. Tell a story, be vulnerable, be real. An about section. Who are you? Why do you write? Keep it sharp and human. Optional, audio or video work. If you're experimenting with podcasts or spoken word, embed it. Contact info. Make it easy for people to reach you. Part 4. Where to start if you have 0 clips. Here's the truth. Everyone starts with nothing. You don't have to wait for an assignment. You can write your own. Here are 7 portfolio pieces you can create this month. A first-person essay about something you've lived. What it's like being the only queer person in a small-town gym. Why I ghosted my dream job interview. A culture critique of something current. Break down a TikTok trend, a film, a meme, or a viral post. An interview with someone you admire. Local activist, artist, grandma. Capture their voice. A micro-investigation. Investigate something strange in your area. Closed shops? Weird policies? Start small. A how-to or explainer. How I turned my dissertation into a blog series. 5 ways to deal with post-grad loneliness. A creative nonfiction piece. Write something poetic, something angry, something beautiful. A mini podcast episode. Script and record a 3-minute audio piece about your street, your hometown, your heartbreak. You don't need a press badge. You don't need permission. You just need something to say and the guts to say it. Part 5. How to keep going when no one's reading yet. Here's the hardest part. You might post your writing and hear nothing. No likes, no shares, no claps, no feedback. And that will feel like failure. But it's not. It's silence. And silence is part of the process. Every writer starts with an invisible audience. You grow it by showing up. Take Amani Williams, 26, based in Manchester. She wrote 50 blog posts over 2 years. Her first 30 had under 10 views. But by post 50, she got featured in a BBC podcast. Now she has 9K newsletter subscribers. Keep writing, even when it feels like shouting into a void, because the void is listening. It just takes time to echo back. Part 6. Making it look professional, even if you're broke. Let's talk aesthetics. You don't need to spend £2,000 on a designer website. Here's how to make your DIY portfolio look pro on a budget. Use Notion or card.co for a clean layout. Stick to 1 or 2 fonts. Keep a consistent color palette. Use coolers.co to pick one. 3. Use free high-res images from Unsplash or Pexels. Proofread everything. Use Grammarly if needed. Add a simple logo or name banner using Canva. The goal isn't perfection, it's legibility and consistency. Make your work easy to read. Make your voice easy to find. Part 7. Real examples of writers who built their own way. Here are 3 true examples of young writers who built DIY portfolios and made it work. 1. Talia B., Bristol background, studied history of art, couldn't find museum work, built a blog series called Old Paint, New Eyes, looking at forgotten women in classic paintings. Result: got featured by Tate Collective. Now writes their youth-facing newsletter. 2. Aman K., Birmingham, background, politics grad, no journalism experience. Built a Substack called We're Still Here, reflections on British Muslim life post-Brexit. Result: got a freelance contract with Al Jazeera and guest speaker gigs at schools. 3. Jules L., Glasgow, background, literature grad, disabled, unable to work full-time. Built a TikTok account reading their poetry aloud, linked to a Notion page of essays. Result: 60K followers. Sold 2 poetry zines. Now working on a podcast. None of them had contacts. None of them had money. None of them waited. They built, and that's why people found them. Final thoughts. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be loud. You just need to create something real. Something human. Something only you could have written. Your DIY portfolio is your story in progress. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist. And once it exists, everything changes. Because you're no longer an aspiring writer. You're a working one. So go write your first thing, or your next thing, and put it somewhere the world can find it. Even if the world isn't ready yet, you are. Chapter 5. Real money, real work for paid gigs. Okay, time to talk about the big one. Money. Because for all the poetry, all the passion, all the purpose, you still have bills. And writing for exposure doesn't pay for oat milk. The truth is, writing can pay. But it rarely comes in the form you expected, and almost never through the front door. This chapter is about finding paid opportunities that are legit, ethical, doable, not a soul suck. We're going to cover where the real gigs are, what kinds of writing get paid, how to pitch and get noticed, how to avoid scams, and how to build income before you're famous. Part 1. Who's still paying writers in 2025? Let's start here. Who actually pays people to write in a world full of AI and free content? Surprisingly, a lot of folks do. You just need to know where to look. 1. Independent media outlets. Not the BBC, not the Times, but The Conversation, Novara Media, Dazed, ID, Huck, The Face, Galdem, archived but freelancers still active, Rest of World, Byline Times, Teen Vogue, yes, really, it's political now. These places pay £100 to £500 per piece, depending on length and depth. 2. Nonprofits and advocacy groups. Think climate action, racial justice, mental health, housing rights. They need blog posts, op-eds, donor stories, social media scripts, newsletter content. These gigs can pay £20 to £100 per hour, or flat fees per project. 3. Startups and ethical brands, especially those run by Gen Z or millennial founders. They want authentic voice, inclusive language, and human storytelling. You might be writing website copy, product descriptions, founder bios, behind-the-scenes blogs. Rates vary, but £150 to £400 per piece is common. Part 2. What kind of writing gets you paid? Let's be clear. The stuff that pays is often not what your university taught you. Here's a breakdown. Type of writing, average pay, UK. Where to find it? Personal essays, £100 to £250. Medium, HuffPost, Dazed. The Guardian Journalism, reported, £250 to £600. Novara, ProPublica, Rest of World. Copywriting, £25 to £60 per hour. Upwork, Contra, LinkedIn. Script writing, $150 to $1,000 per project. Podcasts, YouTube creators, indie media. Social media content, £20 to £50 per post. Startups, NGOs, small businesses. Email newsletters, £150 to £400 per month. Substack, indie orgs, digital teams. Grant donor writing, £100 to £100. $500 per grant. Nonprofits, impact orgs. Ghostwriting, £500 to £2,000 plus. Personal brands, coaches, influencers. The takeaway? There are a lot of ways to earn. They're not always glamorous, but they're real. Part 2. Where to find these gigs? You don't need an agent. You need good bookmarks and a little consistency. Here are platforms to check weekly. Journo Resources, best UK-specific site. Lists freelance calls for writers and journalists. thedots.com. Great for creative briefs, brand writing, and editorial projects. LinkedIn Jobs, filtered for remote plus content. Type writer or content creator and filter by industry. Don't overlook marketing or comms jobs. Upwork. Yes, it has competition, but if you build your profile and vet clients, it can become a regular income stream. Freelancing females. Yes, open to all genders. Slack group and job board for global writing gigs. Reddit/r/hire a writer and Twitter/x freelance writing. Writers post opportunities and rates. Follow hashtags, search for paid pitch or call for submissions. Set up Google Alerts for paid call for submissions and freelance writing jobs UK. Part 4. How to pitch yourself without cringing. You don't need to be established. You need to be clear, specific, and genuine. Here's a simple pitch formula that works. Subject, pitch. Hi, I'm A, and I'd love to pitch you a piece for proposed piece. Title, I don't know anyone who owns a house. On Gen Z and renting forever. Summary, a first-person essay exploring what it means to come of age in a generation that doesn't expect homeownership. I'll draw from personal experience, current data, and cultural commentary. Why now? Renting culture is changing fast, and your readers will connect with the idea that this isn't just economic, it's emotional. Links to recent work, etc. Let me know what you think. Thanks. On Writing Like a Champ, be specific. Don't apologize, don't overhype. Just show that you understand what they publish and why your story fits. On Writing Like a Champ, don't apologize, don't overhype. Just show that you understand what they publish and why your story fits. People asking to be paid before they offer work. Anyone who uses phrases like, we don't have a budget but. Content mills. They'll pay you £5 for 1,000 words. Your time is valuable. Your words have worth, and if someone doesn't respect that, walk away. You are not desperate, you are just starting. Part 6. Building sustainable income streams. The best writers don't just chase one-off gigs, they stack income streams. Here's how. Retainers. Offer ongoing monthly content for a brand, org, or individual. Stable, predictable. Usually £300 to £1,000 per month. Courses or workshops. Teach what you know. Host a session on how to write killer essays or zine-making for beginners. Self-publishing. Release a poetry zine. Sell short story bundles. Use Gumroad or Ko-fi. Subscriptions. Build an audience on Substack or Patreon. Offer bonus content for £3 per month. Commissions. Offer personal letters, memoirs, birthday poems. Niche, but surprisingly lucrative. Rights and reprints. Sell the same piece to multiple outlets in different countries or formats. You don't need a viral hit. You need a system. Unwriting like a champ. Part 7. What to do between paid gigs. Let's be honest, there will be gaps. Dry spells, ghosted emails, canceled projects. Here's what to do while waiting. Update your portfolio. Post short pieces on Medium or Substack. Record a mini podcast or audio diary. Reach out to other writers. Apply for a grant or residency. Rework old pieces into new pitches. Rest. Yes, really. Not every moment has to be productive, but every day you stay in the game, you build career capital. Final words. You don't need a dream job. You need real work that pays and grows you. There are writing gigs out there, and some of them, they're just waiting for someone like you to show up, pitch with heart, and deliver something real. So go get one, then another, then a better one. You're not just chasing money, you're building momentum. And momentum is how writing careers are made. Chapter 6. Using AI without losing yourself. Let's get one thing clear up front. You don't have to reject AI to be a real writer. You just have to make sure it doesn't replace your voice or your values. Because in 2025, AI isn't just optional. It's everywhere. From Grammarly auto-correcting your tone, to Google Docs suggesting entire sentences, to apps writing job applications in your style. It's tempting, it's fast, it's efficient, and it's dangerous if you don't stay conscious. This chapter is about finding the sweet spot, where AI becomes a powerful writing ally, but never your ghost. Part 1. AI is a tool, not a talent. Think of AI like a calculator. It can help you do things quicker, but it doesn't make you a mathematician. Same goes for writing. AI can help you brainstorm titles, summarize transcripts, organize ideas, rewrite clunky sentences, translate rough drafts, fix grammar, generate outlines, format newsletters, ideate social media captions. But it can't decide what matters, feel emotional nuance, make ethical storytelling decisions, understand cultural context, choose honesty over convenience, tell the truth that hurts. And if you let it make those choices for you, you're not writing, you're curating word salad. Part 2. Know what to automate and what to protect. Let's break this down. Smart use cases for AI in your writing practice. Using Whisper to transcribe interviews or voice notes. Using ChatGPT to brainstorm 20 possible titles. Using Grammarly to clean up grammar. Using Notion AI to summarize a long article into bullet points. Using Claude or ChatGPT to help outline a structure. Using WordTune to rephrase stiff paragraphs. What you should never fully outsource. First-person stories, journalism, opinion pieces, satire or memoir. Anything involving lived experience. Anything where harm is possible if the tone is wrong. Any piece with emotional weight or moral responsibility. You can't let a machine decide how to talk about race, or grief, or sexual violence, or identity, because it doesn't live with the consequences. You do. Part 3. AI can't be held accountable. This matters more than people realize. When a human writes something hurtful, exploitative, or false, they can be held accountable. They can be questioned. They can be challenged. They can learn. AI can't do that. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't grow. It doesn't remember. It just generates, based on whatever it scraped, with no filter for harm. In 2023, an AI-generated news article falsely accused a real person of a crime. It was published on a fake news site for ad revenue. The person's life was temporarily ruined. No one could trace who to sue. No one could correct the lie fast enough. As writers, we have a responsibility to know our sources, to stand by our words, to think about who might be hurt, not just who might click. That's the line AI can't cross, but you can. And that's what makes you essential. Part 4. Real writers still use tech. They just use it consciously. Using AI doesn't make you lazy. It makes you efficient if you're the one in control. Here's how smart writers in 2025 use AI. Elliot, 25, uses Whisper to transcribe their podcast interviews, then edits them by hand, adding personal voice. Sana, 28, uses ChatGPT to brainstorm metaphors and analogies, but rewrites them to feel more grounded in her cultural experience. Marcus, 22, writes video essays. He uses Claude to test structure, but writes the actual narration from scratch. Raya, 26, uses Notion AI to generate summaries of complex policy docs before turning them into readable explainers for teens. None of them are cheating. They're enhancing, like writers used to do with typewriters or spellcheck or Scrivener. Writing has always used tools, just don't let the tool write you. Part 5. Keep your voice, no matter what. The number one risk of overusing AI: you lose your voice. AI likes balance, neutrality, smoothing out the weird edges. But those edges are what make you you. Your sarcasm, your weird pacing, your Gen Z slang, your cultural references, your specific rhythm, your messy, emotional honesty. That's what makes people trust you. That's what makes your work feel alive. Here's a quick test. If you copy-paste your AI-assisted draft and read it aloud, and it sounds like someone who's trying too hard to sound a professional, you've lost yourself. Go back, re-inject your voice, swear if you want to, stumble a little. Make it human again. UC6S, collaborating with AI ethically. You might reach a point where you're asked to write using AI tools for clients, for jobs, for social media. That's fine, but set clear boundaries. Be transparent. If you're writing for a nonprofit, say, I used ChatGPT to generate initial ideas. All final content was written by me. Fact check everything. AI hallucinates. You can't trust it to get names, stats, or even basic geography right. Inject real stories. AI can't fake interviews. Include quotes from real people, lived experience, and your own perspective. Refuse ethically gray requests. If a client asks you to spin a fake personal story using AI, walk away. Avoid plagiarism traps. AI may stitch phrases together from sources without attribution. Always rewrite in your own words. Your reputation is your career. Don't sell it for a quick win. Part 7. How to stay human in the age of hybrid writing. So how do you stay grounded while the world shifts under your feet? Here's your guide. Use AI to save time, not soul. Let it handle summaries. You write the truth. Start drafts with feeling, not function. Lead with an emotion, not an outline. Let AI assist your process, not define your product. Experiment, but don't disappear. If your writing feels too smooth, too neutral, too algorithmic, pull it back. Keep a journal. Write things only for yourself. It'll keep your voice sharp. Credit real experience over clean structure. You are not a robot. Don't write like one. Final words. You're not wrong to use AI. You're just responsible for how you use it. The world will try to push you towards speed, efficiency, clean grammar, optimized hooks, but your value is not in your output. It's in your insight, your willingness to see the world clearly and say something brave about it. AI can help, but it cannot replace courage. Use the machine, but never become it. Your story, your real human story, is still the part that matters most. Chapter 7, From Humanities to Hustle. Your degree was not a mistake. Let's talk about that voice in your head, the one that says, I should have done something useful. I should have learned to code. I wasted 3 years reading books while the world moved on. No one cares about what I studied. Let's silence that voice right now, because it's wrong. This chapter is here to tell you in no uncertain terms, your humanities degree was not a mistake. Not in 2025. Not in the era of AI. Not in a world that's short on context, meaning, and ethics. If anything, it's more essential than ever. But it's going to take some reframing and a whole lot of courage. Part 1. The lie of useful degrees. Let's start here. For years, society has pushed one idea. STEM equals stable. Humanities equals hobby. And to be fair, it seemed true. Computer scientists got jobs. Philosophy grads got barista shifts. But then something shifted. Automation started hitting everyone. Coders got replaced by low-cost contractors. UX designers found themselves in AI drag-and-drop hell. Even lawyers and analysts saw their work partially automated. And suddenly, the question wasn't what degree makes you employable. It was who knows how to ask better questions, see the bigger picture, and communicate meaning clearly. That's you. Part 2. What you actually learned in the humanities. Let's unpack what your degree really taught you. Forget the dusty reading list for a second. Forget the citations and the 3,000-word essays. You learned how to build an argument, think critically about systems, spot bias and power dynamics, contextualize new ideas, read emotion and intent, communicate nuance, synthesize complexity, write for different audiences, reflect deeply, understand what makes humans tick. That's not fluff. That's infrastructure for society. It's the difference between what happened and why does it matter and who gets hurt if we ignore it. That's the humanities. Mrs. AI era needs context, and you have it. Let's be real. AI doesn't know why apartheid happened. It doesn't understand colonial legacy. It can't grasp intersectionality. It doesn't care about moral frameworks. And yet, we're using it to write political copy, health advice, even war coverage. That's terrifying. When AI summarizes a conflict, it does so without generational trauma, without local context, without bias awareness, without empathy. But you've read primary sources, you've deconstructed media narratives, you've sat in seminars and fought over phrasing, you've learned that truth is layered, not linear. That's why your degree matters, because in a world overwhelmed by generated content, context is the currency, and you're fluent. I see you. Part 4. Where humanities grads are thriving quietly. You might not see them on billboards, but humanities grads are everywhere, doing powerful, important, paid work. Here are real examples: political campaigns, speechwriters, narrative designers, social media leads. They need people who understand story, tone, audience, and ethics, ethical tech and AI governance. Yes, philosophers and historians are working inside companies like Google and OpenAI, helping assess bias, fairness, and unintended consequences. Documentary storytelling. From Netflix series to independent audio docs, humanities grads are scripting and editing real-world stories. Publishing and editing. Not just books, zines, digital mags, newsletters, content platforms. Still driven by people who get voice and vision. Cultural analysis and consulting. Brands now hire people to decode cultural trends, unpack generational behaviors, and avoid offensive campaigns. Nonprofit advocacy and comms. Humanities grads write the stories that raise money, shift hearts, and drive campaigns. Education and public engagement. Museum text, educational games, virtual exhibits, all need writers who understand people. You're not underqualified, you're underheard. Let's fix that. Understand. Part 5. Rewriting your CV in a post-AI world. Want to stand out in 2025? Stop listing your degree like a relic. Start framing it like a skill set. Instead of BA in history, say trained in primary source analysis, contextual storytelling, and cross-cultural communication. Instead of studied English literature, say analyzed narratives across time periods to understand social change, bias, and audience emotion. Instead of philosophy student, say experienced in ethical reasoning, ambiguity tolerance, and pattern recognition. Your value is real. You just have to translate it into language that shows what you can do, not just what you studied. Part 6. How to prove your degree's value through action. Let's be honest, employers love proof. Here's how to show your humanities skills in motion. Write essays that unpack the world. Publish weekly or monthly essays on real-world events. Use your degree lens to analyze culture, politics, identity. Start a digital zine or magazine. Team up with others. Create a space for human stories. Curate, edit, build. Run a video or audio series explaining ideas. Break down topics like what Marx would say about creator burnout, how the Iliad mirrors modern war PR, why cancel culture is just Victorian morality with Wi-Fi. Do micro-consulting. Help startups or artists avoid tone-deaf messaging. Offer ethical storytelling guidance. Teach or mentor. Run writing workshops for younger students or peers. Share your tools. Submit to think tanks or commentary sites. Places like Open Democracy, New Statesman, or Medium welcome fresh analysis. Don't just say you studied meaning. Create meaning in public. That's what builds careers. Apprentice, Part 7. Let go of shame, claim the hustle. Here's the truth no one tells you. Almost everyone who studied something non-practical feels like they have something to prove. But here's what sets you apart. You see the world not just for what it is, but for what it could be. You care about the why. You understand systems. You notice language. You ask better questions. In a world where AI can generate answers in milliseconds, questions have never been more powerful. You're not soft. You're strategic. And the hustle doesn't betray your degree. It proves it's alive. Apprentice, final words. So next time someone says, "What are you going to do with that degree?" you say, "Change the story." Because every system that governs our world, politics, media, education, justice, runs on narrative. And humanities grads, we speak that language. You're not obsolete. You're not outdated. You're exactly what the future needs. You just have to own it. So hustle, write, think, question, share, shape. You're not behind. You're just beginning. Epilogue. The last human story isn't over. So here you are, at the end of a book about writing. In a time when the world seems to be automating thought itself, you've heard the warnings, you've seen the hype, you've scrolled the job boards, you've watched your friends quit, and still, you're here. Still listening, still searching, still writing. That says something. It says you haven't given up on the idea that words can still mean something, that stories, real stories, can still move people, change people, remind people that they are not alone. That's powerful. That's rare. And in this moment, that might be the most rebellious thing of all. The world is not overwhelmed with writing. It's starved for meaning. There is so much content out there, so much noise, so much surface level, fast scrolling, auto-generated nonsense. But good writing, the kind that pierces through, that slows the reader down, that makes someone put their phone down and just feel something, that's still in short supply. People still crave authenticity, vulnerability, context, perspective, humanity. And those aren't features of a writing platform. They're features of you. Underquote, there will always be a place for human stories, even if the platforms change, even if the formats evolve, even if AI writes 99% of the world's emails. There will always be that one reader, somewhere, waiting to hear a real voice, a voice like yours. Maybe it's a teenager in Berlin, scrolling at 3 a.m., who finds your essay and suddenly doesn't feel so alone. Maybe it's a grieving parent who reads your poem and weeps in relief. Maybe it's an exhausted teacher who uses your Substack piece in class because it explains something better than any textbook. Maybe it's no one yet. Maybe it's just you, writing into the dark, hoping someone will listen one day. And maybe that's enough, because writing is never wasted, even when it's unread, even when it's imperfect, even when it disappears into the digital ether. It changes you, it builds you, it keeps you human. Underquote, you're part of a lineage. You're not the first to fear the machine. When radio came, they said books would die. When TV came, they said theater was finished. When the internet came, they said attention spans were too short for literature. And still, people wrote, people filmed, people staged, people told stories, because humans have always done one thing better than anything else. We remember, we narrate, we explain the unexplainable. We tell stories not just to entertain, but to survive. And that doesn't stop because someone built a chatbot. You're part of that tradition, a living, breathing, questioning mind, and you get to decide what story comes next. Underquote, so what happens now? Now you build, maybe slowly, maybe imperfectly, maybe with a blog that 5 people read, or a video essay that gets 12 views, or a job writing fundraising emails for a local charity. Maybe it doesn't look how you imagined, but that doesn't make it any less real. Here's what you do next. Pick one platform, any platform, and publish something. Find one community, online or offline, and share your ideas. Choose one issue you care about and write about it consistently. Apply for one thing this month, even if you don't feel ready. Reach out to one writer you admire and say thanks. Then do it again and again. Because writing is not just a craft, it's a commitment. Final manifesto. To every Gen Z writer, journalist, humanities grad, and quiet observer, you are not obsolete. You are not invisible. You are not wrong for wanting to be heard. You are not wasting your time. You are building something that no machine can replicate. You have a voice. You have perspective. You have scars. You have questions. You have stories. And those stories, they still matter. So write them, speak them, publish them, share them, even if it's hard, even if it's quiet, even if it feels like no one is listening yet. Because someone will, and when they do, you'll remind them. Just like this book reminded you that the last human story isn't over, it's just beginning. And you, dear listener, you're the one holding the pen. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.